If you're involved in certain Roblox fandoms, you might have seen your favorite character turned into one of these very round and fat creatures. These are often referred to as beans. And today I want to turn a couple Roblox characters into these critters and make them 3D printed figures. Let's get started. I chose two candidates for this project: Walter Regretivator and Sword Fighting. What do you mean that's not their last names? I chose Walter because he has a pretty simple design that I can use for practice. And I chose Sword because I felt if I did a bean video without mentioning fighting, it would be a crime, since this game seems to be the most popular when it comes to Roblox beans. And while I am not good at fighting at all, it's pretty fun. So with my two candidates, it's time to sculpt their 3D models. I quickly make a base to keep consistency between the two models. Since beans are pretty simple in terms of shape, I stick to a modeling technique called box modeling, which means I model with boxes. I know, crazy! They don't look like cubes because they have a modifier called subdivision surface, which smooths out the shape. This method of modeling makes it really easy to push and pull your geometry into whatever shape you want as a starting point. And for features on both sides of the body, I use the mirror modifier, such as wings for Sword. People like to draw him as a bird, and he has some bird-themed skins, so I'm adding them to the model. It's a little harder to simplify Sword than Walter since he has more detail, but I keep core elements like his cape and his helmet. For sculpting in extra details like the fabric folds, I use sculpt mode. After finishing Sword's model, I start working on Walter's next, which doesn't take a whole lot of time, since after the base, I just need to make his scarf. During this modeling process, I experience no distractions whatsoever. Hey, wait, hold on. Once I have everything assembled, I merge the shapes using the Boolean modifier. I need to make all of my pieces one object so my slicing program can read the model. One thing I learned while doing this project was that 3D printing slicing softwares only read your geometry and not your shading settings. Right now, this model is in a mode called Shade Smooth on Blender. If I turn the setting off, this is my actual model's geometry and what the printer will read. In order to make these models 3D printer friendly, I had to go against all good 3D modeling habits. And crank that poly count up, yeah! You don't want to know how cursed the topology is on these figures when you realize this is all in flat shading mode. If you know, you know. Take all my advice with a grain of salt though. This is only my second ever 3D print project, and I am still learning. Once done, I bring my models into Cheep box where I get them ready for printing, and send that to my printer and wait hours for my creations to enter the real world. During my first 3D print attempt, I think Walter thought that the resin was gray stuff and takes a dive in the resin vat, leaving a very cursed figure. No worries, I can just reprint him. But it seems nothing goes right for him these days. Print fails are bound to happen, but we can fix this. I give the figures a generous sanding to smooth down the remaining support bumps. I use different types of sanding paper, sanding sponges, and also a nail drill. This is actually super useful to get into the tighter areas. And to fix Walter's leg, I use epoxy putty to fill its shape. And sand that down once hardened. And now we have two lovely and smooth bases to work with. I prime the models using a spray primer. And once dry, I get ready to paint. I tried to be fancy and use an airbrush to get my base coats down, but it kept getting clogged and it was driving me crazy. But I get the base coats all done. Yay! And now comes the fun part. Painting in the details. I start off with Walter since he has a simpler design and I want to use him for practice. I'm using craft paints thinned down with some paint thinner. I found that paint thinner doesn't run as much as water and makes painting a whole lot easier. It's better to build up thin layers of paint, so your color lays flat and even with fewer brush strokes. The only drawback with craft paints is depending on the brand, the dried finish may be chalky. I didn't mind too much since I'll be sealing these figures later on. We love saving money, yay! Usually 2 to 3 coats of paint does the job, but it may differ depending on the color. Also, I don't know who keeps up with the Regretivator animated episodes, but Sticks and Stones came out recently and it's all I can think about right now. It's so good. I love Roblox. Yes, I am in college. I also bought a pack of liner brushes for $4, and I did not know I needed these in my life until now. They make outlining and touch-ups so much easier. If you're still watching, thank you! You should consider subscribing. I love doing a variety of craft projects, and your support means I get to keep making more. Only if you want to. I wanted to try and give Walter some more detail by painting a knit pattern on the scarf. Let's just say my attempts were less than ideal, so I will pass on those details today. Putting Walter aside to dry, I start tackling Sword, who has a bit more detail and tighter spots to paint. But it's the same process as earlier. While I was trying to get a clear definition on what beans were, it was kind of hard to pin down what kind of animal beans are supposed to represent. From my vague understanding, it's kind of an amalgamation of different animals into one ball of fat and fur. And I think people characterize them differently depending on what animal they associate the character with. Even if it doesn't make total sense, they're cute, and that's all that matters. I think they would sound like the slimes from Slime Rancher. When I got to his helmet, I realized I forgot to buy metallic silver paint, so I ended up using a silver paint marker instead. I mean, it got the job done. And I could just pump the marker and paint smaller areas with a paintbrush, but this paint took ages to dry. For the little cape clasp brooch thing, I used metallic red paint just to give it a little more sparkle. And then I paint his horns and his helmet mohawk, which are apparently called crests. Neat. And last but certainly not least, painting their faces. For Walter, I drew his face in with a paint marker. And as a cute little touch-up, I gave him little blushy cheeks. Why? Because I can. I used a paintbrush for Sword's face because I wanted to have some thinner lines, which meant his face took more time to paint.
Hi.
And I can't forget the scar on his face. Seeing them side by side is so exciting, and we're almost done. I just coat the figures in some varnish. And now, the reveal. I think these came out pretty okay. I like them, but the amount of touch-ups I had to do off camera due to mistakes I made was certainly annoying. But they're still cute. This may just be a random character selection, but now they have to get along and be friends because they will be sitting on my desk together. And that's the end of this craft. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you soon. Bye!